Hello fellow readers and YouTube watchers, thank you for watching this video. I didn't have much time to do an email this week, so I'm just going to be jabbering at the camera here, so thank you for joining me. We're going to be talking about the latest ADU. Well, technically 6 months ago, the House passed a bill pretty much allowing ADUs everywhere, so we're going to be looking at that because now that 6 month period has passed and basically everyone's free to go. So we're going to be looking at what ways ADUs are now going to have an effect on basically home buyers, home owners, and anybody in the state of Washington really. So it's really good to go through all this information because there's a lot of consequences that, well, we'll see how they play out, but let's look at what you're allowed to do now. And we're going to be looking at some more articles to understand what's been happening, and then also at the bill itself. So stay tuned for lots of fun regarding ADU and being able to even afford a house. So let's get into that right now. The first article we're going to be looking at here is specifically for home buyers, and it really opens up the possibilities here for qualifying for a home. So let's read this Yahoo Finance article titled "Home Buyers and Owners Get a Lending Boost from Potential Rental Units on Their Properties." So let's read. So what do they mean by potential rental units? They're basically saying in-law suites, garage apartments, tiny homes, or anything else that is an ADU. Okay, so if there's an ADU on the property, lenders can count 75% of estimated rental income for an ADU as qualifying income when underwriting a mortgage backed by the FHA. So this means that it doesn't have to be rented out. You have to have no rental contract in place. It's basically saying, hey, we have an ADU on a property that we want to buy and we think it'll rent out for this much. Can you get 75% of that rental income counted towards our ordinary income, which was something used to calculate if you're allowed to qualify for a loan, your DTI. More on that below. It goes on. And the new provision also allows 50% of the estimated rental income for a to-be-built ADU to qualify for mortgage under the home renovation loan. So if you're getting a home renovation loan, you can say, hey, I'm buying a property. We can put an ADU on it, and it can probably rent for this much. We want to be able to count that 50% of the expected rent towards our income. So it doesn't even, the property doesn't even need to have an existing ADU on it for you to qualify for ADU rental income. So that's that's crazy. All right, so what the government says is, with our new ADU policy, we'll help households of more modest means maximize the potential benefits of homeownership to build wealth. Okay, thank you, government. Financing an ADU. So this is when it gets more relevant on why it helps people besides just more money in your pocket. Lenders always review an applicant's debt to income or DTI ratio to determine the individual's risk and ability to pay back a loan when underwriting a mortgage. The new rule that lets mortgage underwriters include estimated, you don't have to have a lease signed or in place, estimated ADU rental income lowers a borrower's DTI ratio by increasing their income portion of the equation, basically saying, hey, you have more income than you really do, giving them a stronger borrowing stance. And if you want to know more about DTI, if you just type in nerd wallet, how much house can I afford? So if you just put that in Google, it'll spit this out for you. But let's say, how much house can you afford in Gig Harbor? And then this uses your DTI to calculate how much house you can afford. It generates already a down payment of 20% of this housing number, and it'll spit out a monthly payment for you. If you have excellent credit and you click here, you can do your household income. This is where you can actually increase your income by putting in your projected tenant. So if they were going to pay, let's say your family was making $100,000, and then you say, okay, 75%, let's make an extra $20,000 a year. What does that do for or how much house we can afford? So in this case, between 100,000 and 120, as you can see, this number, it reflects that you get a substantial higher quality house for that. And then of course you can stretch your DTI. Let's say the lender says, okay, we'll get you a 43% DTI, debt to income. So of course you have to say, do you have any other debt as well? Down payment, closing costs, and then you want to do how much. This is loans, so student loans, credit cards, auto loans. So if you say, okay, we pay $1,000 in monthly debt, what does that do to our housing affordability. So that's all part of this equation here of your debt to income. Anyway, sorry, that got a little off track there. Play around with it if you have any more questions. It's pretty self-explanatory as long as you just poke around and actually read the text. All right, let's just finish off this article. The extra income qualifier can significantly help owners finance for ADUs as units around 600 square feet. So this is just data that they've accrued, bring in between $1,600 and $2,500 monthly rents in major cities. Of course, you have to look at what something would bring in here in Gig Harbor or outside of Gig Harbor. So I doubt you would get $2,500 for 600 square feet here. You'd have to build either a nicer, bigger ADU or, you know, be on the water or something, have something really special. All right, here's one more article that I want to cover that's more local. It's called "In Parts of Washington, Backyard Cottages and In-Law Suites Are on the Rise." I don't necessarily has to do with the bill that's passed, but let's read it regardless because it does have some good data in it. Basically, it says, the legislature this year passed a bill that requires many cities and counties to allow at least 2 accessory dwelling units per lot. That's 2, not just 1. An ADU is defined in the state law as a structure that provides independent sleeping, kitchen, and bathroom facilities. So if you don't have any of those, it doesn't count as an ADU. Or if you're missing one of those, should I say. It is located on the same lot, but in another home. So this can be either a detached or an attached or a detached ADU. So it can either be like in the basement, you can have a living area that has a kitchen, bathroom, and sleeping facilities, and then also detached, like we see a lot going up in Seattle, but more on that later. Okay, the law went into effect this summer. Local governments don't have to implement it until 6 months after their latest comprehensive plan updates, which occur in different timelines. So we'll look at those here in a second, which ones will go in effect here. Under the Growth Management Act, only a handful of counties, so that gets us to here. So we have Pierce, Kitsap, King, and Snohomish that are gonna be updating their comprehensive plans, and then you can see green is 2025, gray 2026, and then blue 2027. So we are going to be feeling the first wave effects of this. So I thought it was interesting to cover now. So that's by December, I believe. What else? Okay. So in this article, they are talking to somebody who wants to build an ADU. So it says, but she ran into difficulty financing the project. Building a 1,400 square foot detached structure would have cost around $500,000, she said. And then, quote, unless you have an income that is high enough to pay for the existing mortgage and the cost of building an ADU, you can't do it. It's not really affordable for most people. So, you know, this kind of shines light. So it's not just going to be everywhere. ADUs are going to be popping up and everyone's going to have 3 times the density. Really, we have to look at the reality of things, and developers are, developers and investors are going to be putting money where the rents are the highest, which means in the cities, and not really building things in the boonies because it doesn't pencil out. But it does give options to homeowners who do want to have family members or a little bit of side income, and we will read about what kind of side income you can have the ability to do that. And as we covered before, if you're buying a house, you can now take 50% of that rental income for a ADU you want to build. So if this woman that is quoted here, if she was looking for a new house, she can say, hey, let's take 50% of that 1,400 square foot ADU she wants to build and count it towards her income. So she may be able to qualify for that. I have no idea, but it's just a hypothetical. All right, now let's get into the actual bill itself and kind of digest it a little bit. All right, so this is the House bill in question. This has been the one that's been updated, I believe. So that's 1337 here. So why do they really push ADUs? Well, because here they spell out that ADUs are frequently rented below market rate, providing additional affordable housing options for renters. Another one is the ADUs, about 10% of them are occupied by tenants who pay no rent at all. This includes grandparents, adult children, family members with disabilities, friends going through life transitions, and community members in need. So that's why the state is so proponent for them, because not everything can be fixed by 6 or 7 story multifamily apartments that are taking up entire city blocks. So there's some more stuff I pulled out. Off-street parking requirements here. So if it's one, so they don't know if it's walking distance or as a crow flies, but if the dwelling units are within a half mile of a major transit stop, they don't need a parking. But if your lot is smaller than 6,000 square feet, without a major transit line, then you need 1 parking spot. If you are greater than 6,000 square feet, you need 2 parking spots. So that's just some things to consider, because that's pretty tough when a lot of our residences are on slopes, and getting access is pretty difficult. To encourage the ADUs for long-term housing, cities and counties may adopt ordinances, so we see that in Gig Harbor, development regulations and other official controls to waive, defer fees, including impact fees, defer payment of taxes, and waive specific regulations or newer regulations. So that's interesting. So it gives the cities and counties specific control over some of the uses for them. So anyway, I wanted to pull up what BARD, so I plugged this into BARD. It says Washington State House bill is known as the ADU Expansion Act. It was passed. Okay, we know that. It's aiming at affordable housing in Washington to make it easier for homeowners to build and rent out ADUs, which are known as granny flats or mother-in-law apartments. Okay, we know that. Okay, so the key provisions include preempting restrictive covenants and deed restrictions that prohibit ADUs. That means homeowners will be able to build ADUs on their property even if the neighborhood has covenants or deed restrictions that prohibit them. Now, repealing the requirement that cities and counties incorporate certain ADU recommendations into the land and use regulations gives local governments more flexibility on how they regulate ADUs, prohibiting cities and counties from requiring off-street parking for ADUs within a quarter mile. It's at a half a mile. This makes it easier to build ADUs in walkable, bikeable communities. I think this quarter mile is that from the missing middle House bill, which was different than this one. And so take this with a grain of salt. Making it easier to convert existing structures such as detached garages into ADUs, allowing condo units to be sold independently of a principal unit. So this basically means that if you build an ADU in your lot, you can essentially sell it as you were to build a separate house. We see this happening now in King County a lot, where investors are buying a single family house, essentially splitting the backyard in half and then putting a new house, condoizing it, and then selling it off as a separate structure. So I believe that's either air condoing. Oh, I don't forget what the name is. Basically, they're just turning into condos and selling it. So I think they want to allow that everywhere. Let me pause it and find it in the bill. Okay, here it is in the bill. A city or county may not prohibit the sale or other conveyance of a condominium unit independently of a principal unit solely on the grounds that the condominium unit was originally built as an ADU. There you go. Okay. Okay, what else? Prohibiting cities and counties from requiring public street improvements as conditions of issues of ADU permits. Yes, it is very expensive to do sidewalks and drainage and all that stuff, so it would be cost prohibitive to get this thing to be realized if homeowners had to do that. Developers do, homeowners don't. Okay. So implications are significant. This bill is expected to lead a significant increase in the number of ADUs built in Washington. So that's the goal, of course. They're more affordable, as we read. So they want to create vibrant, walkable communities, which doesn't make much sense out here, but in Seattle, it probably does. However, the bill also has been met with some opposition. They're concerned with increased traffic, noise, and congestion in the neighborhoods. Some local governments are concerned the bill would reduce their local control land use decisions. Okay. Overall, a significant piece of legislation that is expected to have a major impact on the housing market in Washington. The bill is likely to lead to an increase in the supply of affordable housing, which is a benefit for homeowners and renters. So here are some other specific things. A homeowner in a single family neighborhood will be able to build an ADU on their property, even if the neighborhood has restrictive covenants. Okay, we read that. This could allow the homeowner to house an elderly parent or adult child or rent out the ADU to generate additional income. We read that, and the additional income you can also now qualify for mortgage purposes, right? A city with a shortage of affordable housing could relax its zoning regulations to make it easier for homeowners to build ADU. This could help increase the supply. So we read that about waiving fees and things like that. A developer could build a new condo complex. So this is talking again about the condoization. So in denser areas, you can build 2 ADUs. In less dense, you can build 1 ADU. So if in Seattle, I have a lot and I want to build a single family house and then 2 ADUs, I can then, in the zone, single family, it's not zoned for like townhouses. You can build a single family house and 2 ADUs, condo, boom, you got 3 houses. Small houses, but 3 houses nonetheless. Developer could build a new condo complex with ADUs attached to each unit. This would allow buyers to purchase a condo unit that's smaller and more affordable than traditional single family home. Homeowner could convert their detached garage into an ADU and rent it out to a tenant. This could generate additional income to help to reduce the cost of housing in the community. Okay. And then I asked if part of this was, does this mean any residents in Pierce County can build an ADU, or does it need to be within the urban growth boundary? If you don't know the urban growth boundary here, I'll show it to you in Gig Harbor. So this is the urban growth boundary. It does not have to be in that. And that's what I asked the AI is, can you do it anywhere, or does it have to be part of the urban growth boundary? It said, yes, any residents in Pierce County can build an ADU under this bill, regardless of whether it is within the urban growth boundary. The urban growth is a line that separates urban areas in Washington from rural areas. It is designed to encourage development within these areas to protect rural developments. We had this with zoning restrictions on subdividing lots. Everybody was kind of miffed about that. Prior to the House bill, there were some restrictions where ADUs could be built in Pierce County. For example, ADUs were not allowed in some rural areas. However, 1337 preempts these restrictions and allows ADUs to be built anywhere in Pierce County. There are still some zoning regulations that apply to ADUs, such as setback requirements. Okay. Yes, there is some nuance to this. And so what's interesting about, well, let's go back to the, I didn't know this was set. A city or county must allow ADUs to be converted from existing structures, including but not limited to detached garages, even if they violate current code requirements for setbacks or lot coverage. So if you have a that's fun. So even if they encroach on neighbor's property, you can still convert them to an ADU. So that's what the bill says. So even if you have you bought a house and it turns out that the house's detached garage is on your neighbor's property, technically, you can still turn that into an ADU. No problems, no questions asked. Anyway, that was that one. But I don't think these are, you still have to go with the setback requirements, but it's not for specific setback requirements for ADUs. So if you're interested in building ADU, contact your local planning department. Okay, so that's ADUs. Okay, is there anything else? Oh, I'm going to be going to this, which is the new state zoning laws, the missing middle housing in Washington, Part 1. Impacts on borrowers, agents, appraisers, and financing. This will make it a lot more difficult. Basically, the highest and best use for these lots in dense areas like Tacoma or Seattle will be 6 units, no longer single family house. So I don't think those are going to be specific requirements for lenders and appraisers, but it's going to be interesting what's going to be happening with this. And here it says, HB 1337 created a requirement that all cities and counties must allow a minimum of 1 accessory dwelling unit on residential lots in certain areas and 2 ADUs in other areas. So that's that. Well, thank you for sticking with me. It's kind of opening Pandora's box here, so we'll see what's going to happen. And yeah, if you can take advantage of this, let me know, and just in the comments down below how you plan on using these ADU requirements. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.